has been some of your messaging to leaders in the PWI space who are really trying to make a difference when it comes to persistence, when it comes to graduation, but are not really understanding the struggle? What's some of your messaging when it comes to people say, you know what, listen, I want to make a difference. Where do I start in understanding what's happening with these minoritized populations?
When I was first approached about how to help Black folk, this is like back in the day when I was working in the Cultural Center, I always gave the answer that I thought would be able to support us moving forward and somebody getting it. I won't classify it as just male, but white administrators may not necessarily understand because they don't have to understand. They are there for one purpose only, to graduate students, to get them through and work within the resources that they have. But they don't think about the day-to-day of what is going on for a student, what a student is having to deal with. I remember when George Floyd's murder occurred, people coming to me and asking me, what can I do? I only allowed myself to watch it one time. I've never seen it again since the first time I've ever saw it. I don't allow myself to watch that. And I was a news junkie. I used to watch TV, but everything I was always seeing was always a hit on me as a Black male. Also, think of myself in lines of what was going on for President Obama, because as a Black male close to his age, the things that were hitting him from white males and from the white community were things that I was feeling as well. So I was like, I know how he feels. I know exactly what he's going through. So when white administrators were coming to me and saying to me, what can I do? I had to stop trying to teach them what to do. And I had to say to them, what do you want to do? I have to every day navigate this and figure out what I need to do to make this happen. And, and one of the things that I gave them was, if you fell and skinned your knee, you would know what to do. These things happening in Black and brown communities, people dying, and you don't know what to do. What was it? What if it was somebody in your family that was going through this? What would you do? How about you going in and immersing yourself into communities, you going and doing the work that you need to do to find how you want to do this work? Because if you're telling me you want to be a co-conspirator with me, if you want to be somebody who's really being an advocate for people in Black and brown communities, then show up. Because I can't tell you what to do. Because when I tell you what to do, what happens most times, and I've seen this happen numerous times with white administrators, well, can we do it this way though? Can we tweak it this way? So this, and again, what does that do? It keeps you comfortable with where you want to do and what you want to take this. So don't come ask me the question about what can you do? And then when I give you what you should do, and you tell me you can't do it, let's try it this way, then you're not necessarily in it to help that be a situation that can flourish and come through to the end. And that's not all of them, but a majority of them will not allow themselves to actually go into the communities of the people who they are serving and understanding from their perspective, their worldviews, what it is that they need and what it is that they can be given from a university perspective so that they can be successful. They want the quick fix. They want the imagery of, hey, this is what we're doing. We drop a statement here and we drop a statement there. But people in Black and brown communities know when a statement is a statement and when you are actually there helping them work through whatever it is that you got going on. And that's what's going to last. The works that you do is going to show up, not the statements and the getting on TV or sending out a memo that says, hey, I'm down with you, and then we don't see you down with them. It's really about what is it that you want to do? Show up that way. Make the mistakes that I make every day when I don't always get it right. Because you can't have that fear that you're going to upset somebody. If your heart's in the right place and you really want to support and help these students who are suffering or working through whatever issues they're working through, then show up and be there authentically for them. And then they will find a way to accept that. Because once they trust you in that space, then you'll know what to do.
One of the biggest benefits is that it can decrease that potential barrier to entry. To say, you know what, I know Nathan, he's of Indian descent, I'm of Indian descent, I'm going to go try and see Nathan. Whereas someone might not reach out if someone does not look like them, for example. But another way to achieve that goal, and just building off of one of the questions I quickly saw, is that having peer stories of students from marginalized communities or minoritized, who have reached out and have achieved success can be a great way to help with that. Knowing that I'm not the first person of color to go to this counseling center and receive support and have success can go a long way, because they can trust that person in a way that, they might not trust a white clinician to say, no, I'm ready to go. I'm trained. I want to do this. So peer stories can go such a long way in helping getting students connected to care that they need.
I want to build on this too. I think one of the issues in higher ed that we have is the pipeline and the availability of counselors with these identities. And so as we connect students into care and connected to this area of interest, ultimately another area we can work on in higher ed is expanding the pipeline of diverse clinicians to be able to, as Nahed was saying, give students options on their campus and make it so they are more likely to seek that professional help when they need it. But right now, it's not always an option for most campuses because there isn't a strong pipeline of diverse clinicians.
All the questions revolve around the virtual space that, of course, many clinicians are in, and of course, instructors are in as well, especially as Omicron has surged. And one of the questions, and I'm going to ask Sasha to address this question and ask others to jump in. One question was this: in person, I would be willing to physically walk students to the counseling center. How do you do that virtually? The question, Sasha, is what are the challenges with regards to connecting students to help with their mental health virtually as opposed to in person?
That's a great question. And I think the first thing that comes into mind is that a lot of faculty members actually don't even know what the resources are on campus anymore. It has changed so much through the pandemic, and every institution has handled it so differently. So in one of our survey questions that we asked faculty, we found out that a list of mental health resources on campus would just be helpful. Most faculty don't have that at their institutions. And so when a student comes to them with distress, and let's say they've recognized it, or the student already has told them about the distress, they don't really know what the next step is, especially because a lot of faculty do not have training in this. And most of us are not mental health providers. And so I think just making sure that faculty know what the resources are on campus is really important. And I think just with the pandemic and this shift of going offline and online and in person, just doing what you can as an instructor in like the setting that you have. So like putting the mental health resources that you know on your syllabus so that it's always accessible to students.
We have not done enough to build a school to college pipeline for our Black and brown populations. Mm-hmm. We know it. We see it every day. We think we're separate from it. We're not. A lot of our students who have not experienced higher ed or have no context in their family, they don't like the school because they come and the teachers seem like they're not relating. They don't see people like them, right? I don't have enough Black and brown men teachers or administrators. I mean, I have a good number, but not enough to support in the way that we support. So we built affinity groups. Mm-hmm. We have a group called HOPE, Halting Oppressive Pathways Through Education. We're naming the problem. The pathways are oppressive, right? Right. So they have a peer mentor who's kind of like a coach to them, who is a year ahead of them. We pay those students to coach the younger students. They come together for meals. They come together in community that is not necessarily academic. Like they took a bunch of money and went out and had dinner together. I'm like, good. They need that connection, right? So we're fostering a different kind of community that is identity-based. the identity and affinity student engagement pieces is really young across the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the HBCUs do it really well.
Right.
Right. They have always done it well. That's why their medical schools, when we look into it, have a 15-20% higher success rate than all the other medical schools. We know that affinity works. What I'm trying to say to people is we need to give it a try and not to let it get caught up in the culture wars.
Right.
Right. Because I don't want people saying, oh, they're just a woke campus. No, we're more than just a woke campus. We are a campus who knows our students.
Right.
Right. And really respect their cultural wealth, really respect their asset. That doesn't mean that we're ignoring that the larger world out there that's primarily white, and we need to teach students how to navigate that. But I don't want them to do what I did, which is to give up some of that cultural wealth in order to navigate the white world and then losing all of those pieces.
Right.
Right now I'm reclaiming it, but man, I'm old. I don't have many more years to reclaim that. I didn't want to lose it in the first place.
I really love the advising aspect of what you guys are doing. That staying with someone along the way, really helps. Just I'm thinking of different things that I've been involved with. When you have a mentor and someone that's there with you, you are. I don't know any numbers, but you're less likely to stray, if you will.
Right. And that's why it's so important for us to work with parents, particularly from our first gen students, so that we can provide this information and provide this opportunity and see beyond the immediacy of, let me get a job right now and make some money, which I can do that.
Right.
But wow, it's an opportunity cost if I can just kind of make somewhat of a sacrifice, do a couple of years or 4 years, get that degree, and then perhaps, and well, we already know this, the data already shows the more education you make, the more money you make. And so you'll make some immediacy here, but wow, with that education, it so much jumps up that you're leaving money on the table without getting an education.
There's no way I can give an hour keynote in our time together, but I'll do my best.
The abridged version.
Yeah, I'll do my best. So here's what we know. We know that from the moment the English first sought to colonize in North America, for 100 years from that point, from the Roanoke attempt, there is not a single reference for 100 years to anyone called a white person, not in law, not in records, right? So then all of a sudden, beginning for the first time in 1681, there begins to be a reference to a whole new group of humanity called white people. Well, so the question becomes how, when, where, and why. Like lawmakers are like the rest of us. We don't tend to go about creating something that requires effort unless it's to serve a purpose. And there's a couple interesting things to note. First of all, before the very first assertion in law of anybody called a white person, the treatment of people of African descent and people of European descent who were indentured servants, if they worked on the same plantation, their lives were the same. They were treated the same. They worked together, they ate together, they slept together. What began to emerge around 1640, but even then it was by far the exception, was that some people of African descent began to be claimed as indentured for life or enslaved, which would be our language. But that was, again, the exception, not the rule. And Leon Bennett Jr.'s work is really terrific to capture this, because he, of course, was writing against these white historians who were articulating that the first people of African descent forced to the shores of Virginia were enslaved. But what Lerone Bennett's work shows, and he practically takes a picture and puts it in a chapter, he shows that if you look at the records at the plantation, the people of African descent are listed as servants alongside the Europeans who were held on the plantation. And we also know that only because I've dug into the research about two of those people, is that within 5 years, they were married. You couldn't be married if you were indentured. And so the fair assumption is that they were free, and then they gave birth to a child, which was punishable if you were indentured, and their child, there was no punishment meted out, and the child was William was baptized in the Church of England. So you have all of these historical clues that really suggest significantly that people of African descent and European descent were similarly treated. And furthermore, once persons of African descent were free, were no longer bound by a term of indenture, they had the same rights and privileges as an Englishman. They could vote, they could run for public office, and they did. There were African-American men who held public office. They could own land, and they did. They could own European indentured servants. They could own African indentured servants, and they did all of those things in the historical record. And so then what happened, right? Obviously something significant happened. And what the historical record suggests is that this massive rebellion called Bacon's Rebellion that engulfed the colony of Virginia for over a year.
Right.
Yeah, it is after that rebellion. Again, I think it's really important for people. It's not some week-long or a couple-day rebellion. It was well over a year. That the English ruling elite were absolutely, horrified, traumatized by this, and the work of historian Theodore Allen digs into letters going back and forth between the legal oversight authority in London and the ruling elite in Virginia. And the Virginia rulers said, hey, look, oversight authority in London, don't worry about this. We have it under control. And they indicated that they were going to pursue a divide and conquer strategy. And it is on the heels of that we see bundles and bundles of laws getting passed that took the laboring class and now divided us into those called white laborers. And they didn't do much even on the front end to lift up those white laborers in terms of giving them a pence or resources.
Right.
What they did was they dug out a new bottom to colonial society and tossed people of African descent and indigenous people into that pit. And we've been living with that social structure ever since.